All right, folks, the music industry is in an uproar after a judge sentenced Philadelphia rapper Meek Mill to 2 to 4 years in prison for a probation violation. The judge says she had given Mill multiple chances, but he had thumbed his nose at the court. He repeatedly violated his probation in a 2008 gun and drug case, including a failed drug test and not following a court order restricting his travel. Now, prosecutors had recommended that Mill not be jailed, noting that he's been drug-free since January. His lawyer is vowing to appeal. Let's break this thing down with legal analyst A. Scott Bolden. Also, of course, by phone from Philadelphia is Vincent Thompson, Principal Thompson Media Man Communications, political correspondent for WURD Radio. Vincent, I'll start with you. When this story first was reported, folks assumed it was a white judge. In fact, it's a black female judge.
Mm-hmm. That's correct. Janice Brinkley is an African-American female judge, has been on the court for a long time. And I think what people have to remember is this. This has been a 10-year thing between Meek Mill and the judge. Meek Mill is now 30 years old. He's been dealing with this judge since he was 20. And this sister is no joke. I know her personally. She tells you exactly what you should do, and if you don't do it, she will put you in jail. I think the sentence, and I'm not speaking on behalf of the court system as the person who knows her, she probably got frustrated with Meek Mill and said, you know what, you're not going to listen, I'm going to have you serve the remainder of your sentence. Because remember, he was out on probation. So this is not like he got a new sentence. This was just having him serve the remaining time of his old sentence. A lot of people are getting upset about this, especially young people, millennials. But the question you've got to ask is this. If you know what the rules are and you don't follow the rules, don't be surprised that you're not in jail. There's a lot of people that can be martyrs for the criminal justice system. Personally, I don't see Meek Mill being that person.
One of the things that people also have been talking about is that they're saying, wait a minute, this case goes back, almost 10 years. But you had, based upon what I understand, repeated violations. And so you're coming back. Then his lawyer says, well, he's been drug-free since January. Was he required to be drug-free longer than just 9 months?
Well, he was required to be that, but there have been reports, Roland, and the attorney can tell me that at one of his urine samples, he actually submitted water. You can't do that. You can't flaunt you can't flaunt the law. And just something that I think listeners need to know, there has been a petition that's been going on the internet asking for the governor to pardon Mr. Mill, who was born Robert Williams. The governor issued a statement basically saying Pennsylvania law does not give the governor any unilateral power to review, reconsider, or change a conviction. The law provides for individuals to apply to the Board of Pardons, which make recommendations to the governor. The petition is seeking an action that is not permitted or possible under current law, end quote. To make it short, Governor Wolf ain't dealing with this case.
Scott Bolden, again, when I tweeted about this earlier this week, a lot of people were upset that he got sentenced. And as I began to even go further, because they kept saying, well, okay, he was just riding his bicycle. Then they said that, then people kept saying that, well, the charges were dropped. Also explained that when the charges are dropped in another case, there was a plea deal. So there was a plea bargain here where they said, you drop the charges and then he'll do community service. That's still a part of the legal system. It's not like, oh, charges were dropped because they were false.
Yeah, but the basis is this. He was still on probation. See, this has been 10 years, but this individual, Meeks, he's driven the narrative for 10 years because he doesn't believe he's got to follow the judge's orders. Just watch this for a second. He pled guilty or was convicted of drug and gun charges in 2008. He served 8 months and got 5 years probation. 5 years probation. You can't jaywalk when you're under probation order. You can't consort with felonies. You can't get arrested. You can't use drugs, and you can't travel without the court's permission. He did all of those over a 10-year period. And to prove a violation of probation, I don't have to prove you did the crime. I just have to prove that you got arrested. So within that context, this 10 years is because of him, not the criminal justice system. The music industry needs to stop this because there's a bucket of racism that is offensive to people of color and that is oppressive to us, but there's another bucket of personal responsibility. And this case is in the bucket of personal responsibility.
But here's the question. the amount of money it costs to actually house somebody in a prison system, does it make sense to send him to prison for 2 to 4 years? I mean, again,
it's a false equivalent.
No, it's not.
Yes, it is.
No, hold on.
Yes,
allow me to finish.
Prisons are built for people like me.
No, allow me to finish. Allow me to finish. If we're talking about a non-violent offender.
Gun charges and drug charges are violent offensive.
And when was the gun charge?
It was 8 years ago.
8 years ago. And what I'm saying is his probation violation was not a violent offense. I'm still saying, if we're talking about a criminal justice system, does it make sense?
He was arrested for fighting in an airport, another violent offense, while he was on probation.
And again,
reckless driving.
I'm making the point.
As well.
I'm making the point. Does it make sense to imprison him for 2 to 4 years, and the amount of money the state of Pennsylvania will be spending to incarcerate him for 2 to 4 years? Does that make sense? Yes or no?
Yeah, it makes sense. Under these circumstances, of course it makes sense. This judge, over 10 years, was trying not to put him in the system, but he kept coming back into the system and coming back before her because of solely because of his personal misconduct. That's what's the driving narrative in this case. This racism stuff and the justice system being against black people and this being an example borders on the nonsensical. In fact, it's ridiculous. He'll serve a year, maybe a year and a half, and maybe he'll then understand what the justice system is really about.
Karen?
I have a hard time with this, and I'm not a millennial, but I keep asking myself, could the judge have done something else?
She did everything else over 10 years. She actually put him in jail for 6 months after he violated probation, and then these charges were dismissed, and he was warned, do not travel without my permission. He's an entertainer, so he can travel. But it's nonsense, basically, because Meeks drives this narrative. He simply didn't take it seriously, and I got to tell you, defendants sign probation orders because they don't want to go to jail. But when you read that order, it's a document you must read in court, you must acknowledge that you've read it, and then you sign it saying you're going to be committed to it. What else is there? This is all about personal responsibility.
Yeah, and the question of, if the judge do something different, I mean, that's what they did when they gave him out on probation. I mean, he was convicted of a drug and a gun violence charge. He admitted to it, and they could have sent him on their way for how many years, 10 years, however long. They gave him a second chance. Yeah. They said, hey, we'll let you go out, but you have to follow these specific rules. And time after time again, he's broken them, and now the justice is coming down hard on him.
That makes this case different, Roland. This is not the case where the system is just unfairly incarcerated someone, unfairly dealt with someone. At some point in time, African-American men and brown men and black men have got to take some responsibility, a lot more, for being in the system.
Vincent, how is this playing in Philadelphia?
You know what? I think it's mixed. Some people are upset with it, but I can tell you, most black folks that call in the WURD, they're worried about daily issues of work and life and everything else. This is not top of the list of a lot of people in Philadelphia.
All right, then. We appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
And another thing.
What?
Nothing. I was just joking.
Yeah, I thought so. I thought so.
Weekdays on TV One.
I will never lie to you.
Oh, my God.
Roland Martin.
He doesn't want to talk to us. He wants to ignore us.
Uncensored.
Hell no. That ain't gonna cut it, boo.
Unapologetic.
No, that is fundamentally false. You are wrong.
Unfiltered.
He wants an America where we all look alike. He ain't talking about black people.
Unrelenting.
You better go work out, because you got a fight on your hands.
NewsOne Now with Roland Martin. Weekdays at 7 a.m. on TV One.